In 1932, America was a land divided, not just by wealth, but by race, class, and power. For those marked as outsiders, survival often meant silence, obedience, or disappearance. But in Cincinnati's immigrant neighborhoods, whispers spread about a widow whose beauty concealed a darker truth. Men vanished, fortunes were drained, and fear rippled through a community already judged for its heritage and skin. What happens when a fight for dignity collides with the hunger for money and power? Stay with me, because the story of Anna Marie Hahn is more than a tale of murder. It is a mirror of prejudice, greed, and betrayal. Anna Marie Hahn was born in Germany and arrived in the United States at a time when immigrants faced suspicion, ridicule, and barriers at every turn. The Great Depression only deepened these divisions. For German immigrants, survival meant carving out a place in society that labeled them foreign, untrustworthy, or undeserving. Anna appeared to be the exception, a young widow, strikingly beautiful and eager to be accepted. To her neighbors in Cincinnati, she was a caregiver, offering companionship to older men who often lived alone, men who themselves carried the scars of being outsiders. In her charm, they saw acceptance. In her smile, they saw hope. But beneath the polished exterior, Anna carried resentment. She had grown up watching her family struggle against class discrimination back in Germany. And in America, she quickly realized that money could buy the very respect that race and status often denied. Caring for wealthy, elderly men wasn't just about kindness. It was about opportunity. As she moved deeper into Cincinnati's immigrant enclaves, Anna began weaving herself into the lives of those who trusted her most. To the world, she was a savior to lonely men. But to those who looked closer, something far more sinister was beginning to take shape. The stage was set for betrayal, and no one could yet imagine how far Anna would go in her pursuit of power. It started quietly, too quietly to notice. One by one, elderly men in Cincinnati's German community began to fall ill. What seemed like natural ailments, weakness, nausea, sudden collapse, were brushed aside as the misfortunes of old age. But the pattern followed Anna, wherever she went. Behind closed doors, Anna was not the nurturing caregiver she pretended to be. She slipped white powders into drinks, prepared meals laced with bitterness, and watched as her victims deteriorated. To neighbors, she was a grieving widow. To her victims, she was the last face they would ever trust. The motive was clear: money. Each man she courted had something Anna wanted: savings, life insurance, or property. When they died, she collected, gambling their fortunes away in a haze of addiction. But the tragedy went deeper. Many of her victims were immigrants, men who had come to America seeking dignity and belonging. Already burdened by prejudice, they had few allies, and their deaths attracted little concern from authorities at first. After all, who would question the loss of poor, foreign-born men in a city already hostile to outsiders? This neglect wasn't accidental. It was systemic. In a society that ranked worth by race, wealth, and status, the lives of marginalized men meant little to the powerful. Anna knew this, and she exploited it. But whispers began to spread. Families grew suspicious. Neighbors raised questions, and the trail of unexplained illnesses pointed in one direction: toward Anna. Each accusation deepened the tension. Could a woman, a widow, truly be responsible for such evil? Or was suspicion itself colored by prejudice, a desire to vilify an immigrant woman daring to defy the roles society imposed? By the summer of 1937, the truth would no longer remain buried. The breaking point came with the death of George Obendorfer, one of Anna's wealthiest companions. He had trusted her with his health, his home, and his fortune. But within days of her care, he collapsed, poison coursing through his veins. Unlike the others, his death could not be ignored. His family demanded answers, and investigators began to pull at the threads of Anna's story. Autopsies revealed arsenic, an unmistakable sign of deliberate poisoning. Suddenly, the quiet suspicions became undeniable evidence. Police unearthed a chilling pattern. Multiple men, all connected to Anna, all dead under mysterious circumstances. In court, prosecutors painted her as a black widow, a predator who cloaked herself in femininity and foreign charm. But the trial was more than an indictment of Anna. It became a stage where stereotypes, fear, and racialized suspicion were on display. She was not just a murderer in the eyes of the public. She was an immigrant woman who had dared to exploit and outwit men in power. The jury heard the stories of lonely men, stripped of their fortunes and their lives. They saw Anna not as a victim of prejudice, but as its manipulator, someone who turned societal neglect into her weapon. The verdict was swift, guilty. The sentence, death. As the gavel struck, the courtroom erupted. For some, justice had been served. For others, it was a grim reminder that when immigrants stepped out of their place, punishment was inevitable. In 1938, Anna Marie Hahn became the first woman executed in Ohio's electric chair. The public gathered, newspapers sold out, and the spectacle of her death marked the end of a chilling chapter. But beneath the headlines lay a deeper story. Anna had exploited not just men, but the cracks in society that valued some lives more than others. Her victims, immigrant men who sought trust, dignity, and belonging, were forgotten in the narrative of the Black Widow. Their struggles against prejudice, their quiet attempt at survival, were overshadowed by the sensational image of a beautiful woman turned killer. The tale of Anna Marie Hahn forces us to ask, what role does discrimination play in shaping both victims and villains? Would her crimes have gone unnoticed for so long if her victims had been wealthy, powerful, or white? And why do we so often remember the name of the criminal, while the silenced voices of those lost fade into the background? Her story reminds us that injustice is not only in the crime itself, but in the unequal weight society gives a human life. So as we close this chapter, the question lingers, how many stories of the marginalized go untold, buried beneath the louder voices of power? And when we hear them, will we finally listen?